Let me start off by saying that I'm definitely a Michael Todd fan. I wish him all the best and I really want him to succeed. Also, it would of course be everybody's first instinct to ignore the training advice coming from a random guy on YouTube, especially if you are a top 10 arm wrestler in the entire world. So I get that he probably would not listen to this. We will look at two of the lifts he does all the time, and I haven't seen anybody discuss the second one yet, which might actually be a game changer for him. Michael is actually one of the most incredibly talented pullers of today. Despite his suboptimal training, he stops guys like Devon Larratt in center and completely dominates their hand. That means to me that at 52 years old, he might still have the potential to reach number one if, and that's a big if, he cleans up his training. So let's take a look at his so-called Pronation Lift World Records. There's a couple of problems here. The first one being how open his arm angle is. This form will make your strength only kick in while you're already at a losing position in your arm wrestling match. Now we've all heard people say, yeah, but that's exactly how Michael pulls in a real match, so it just makes sense to train like this. But since his comeback, actually, as soon as he gets stretched out like this, he usually just loses. But we are starting to see incredible hand control in center from him. The other big problem is him resting his forearm on his thigh while getting the weight up. This not only takes a lot of the load off of his back pressure, which he desperately needs to increase, it is also making it way easier on his actual pronation. The forearm is going to be way easier to keep from rotating if it is pushed up against a surface, which is also why your pronator can hold a lot more weight in this position on a table, for example. So calling these attempts world records is a little bit much for me personally. It sometimes feels like Michael is just mentally trapped into having to add weight every single day in order to convince himself that he is making progress. A good way to show that everything is possible through Christ would be to consider his teachings about letting go, to drop the ego, and to stop having to be the guy who lifts the most amount of weight all the time. If you trained with good form, then you would for sure have more endurance in the position that you got in versus Devon Larratt in round one, and you might have actually been able to win from there. So it's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Time for the second lift, which, if done correctly, might have even more of an impact for Michael. Lift 2 is what he himself describes as his outside side pressure, which he does on his machine. It's debatable in my opinion how much side pressure is even used here, but more importantly, the angle in which his power kicks in is an angle in which you no longer can really apply side pressure if your opponent is at least somewhat similar in strength. But just imagine if he did this properly, keeping his angle tight throughout the whole range like he is at the beginning of the lift, and becoming really strong in this position. We might have seen him even advance his amazing position that he got versus Larratt in, instead of just slowly losing from there. But again, he would have to drop his weights quite a lot on this exercise. Michael, you're clearly one of the most hardworking people in this entire sport. It would be a shame if you didn't reach your full potential on this comeback, even though you already achieved so much. We are all rooting for you.